Her phone lit up on the wet pavement. That's how this starts. Face down, right at the edge of the sidewalk, screen still glowing like it was begging me to see it. One buzz, then another, then silence. If it hadn't slipped out of her coat pocket, I'd still be the idiot walking beside her in the dark, rambling about how good the apple cider was at Taryn's place, laughing at her jokes, smiling at the sound of her boots scuffing the leaves. But the universe had other plans. I picked it up, her phone, thinking I was doing her a favor. A good husband move. Here, babe, you dropped this, right? And then I saw it. Beckett, you taste like strawberries and sin. Round 2 when he's asleep? I didn't breathe. I couldn't. The cold wind vanished. The streetlight above me flickered like it knew. And she just kept walking. Didn't even notice she'd lost her phone. Didn't notice she'd just shattered me. I should have yelled. I should have thrown the phone. I should have said her name. But I didn't. I just stood there like a ghost watching the woman I married walk ahead like she wasn't dragging a knife behind her. 10 feet. 15. She finally turned. Eli, she called out, confused. Like I was the weird one. I handed her the phone without a word. She looked at me, then at the screen. And that's when her face broke. Not into guilt, not into panic, but into fear. And that told me everything. She didn't say anything at first. Her hand just hovered near the phone like it might bite her. I saw the way her eyes flicked to the message, then to me, then back again. Like maybe if she blinked enough times, it would vanish. But it didn't. Beckett's message was still there, burning through that cracked privacy screen like a confession she never planned to make. She took the phone from my hand like she was touching something radioactive and immediately turned the screen off. Then, the performance began. What was that? She asked, pretending not to have read it. Her voice was so calm, too calm, like she'd practiced that exact tone in the mirror for moments just like this. I didn't answer. I just stood there, heart racing, face numb, ears ringing. My mind was trying to do the math. Who is Beckett? When did this start? What does round 2 mean? But the numbers weren't adding up. I wasn't angry yet. I wasn't yelling. I was just confused, like my brain was buffering reality and nothing was loading. You think I'm cheating? She said suddenly, and there it was, the first crack in her mask. She said it like I'd accused her, like I was the villain for noticing. I hadn't even opened my mouth. And yet, she was already defending a crime I hadn't named. The thing is, I'm not confrontational. I don't scream. I don't do ultimatums. I'm the guy who says sorry when he gets bumped into at the grocery store. But right then, something inside me started unraveling. I asked her quietly, who is Beckett? She laughed. A short, sharp sound that had zero joy in it. Oh my God, Eli. It's a joke. He's just a guy from my poetry group. He sends weird texts to everyone. It's kind of his thing. You're seriously jealous over that? That word. Jealous. Like I was just some insecure loser with trust issues. Like I hadn't just read the words, you taste like strawberries and sin from a man I've never heard her mention once in 3 years of marriage. I nodded slowly, mostly to myself, then started walking again. Not because I believed her, I didn't, but because if I stood there any longer, I think I would have dropped to my knees. I didn't even feel the cold anymore. She followed me, silence stretching between us like rope. Tight, ready to snap. When we got home, she went straight to the bathroom and locked the door. I sat on the edge of our bed for 20 minutes staring at the floor. My mind kept replaying the message over and over like a bad song on repeat. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. Her sudden interest in solo walks this past month. The late-night journaling. The time she accidentally left for yoga in full makeup. When she came out, her face was washed clean, her phone nowhere in sight. She didn't say sorry. She didn't sit beside me. She just climbed into bed and turned her back to me like nothing happened. And I, like the fool I've always been, laid down next to her. I couldn't sleep. Not with that sentence carved into my brain. Round 2 when he's asleep? I guess I know what time he usually texts. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She made coffee, with oat milk, just how I hate it, and left it on the kitchen counter without a word. No good morning. No about last night. Not even the usual sarcastic remark about my hair sticking up like an abandoned bird nest. Just silence and almond butter toast. She hummed while scrolling her phone, probably reading Beckett's next poem about her mouth. I watched her from across the room, pretending to work on a gear review for a camera I didn't even open yet. The air between us was thick, like the conversation we didn't have was still standing there, arms crossed, tapping its foot. I didn't know what to do. Confronting her again felt pointless. She was either going to lie better or flip it back on me like I was paranoid. And truthfully, maybe I was. I'd never caught her doing anything before. She didn't have some long history of cheating or disappearing. But still, that message didn't come from nowhere. So I did something I never thought I'd do. When she went out for groceries that afternoon, or so she claimed, I waited 5 full minutes after the door closed, then walked straight to the bedroom, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Her phone wasn't there. Not on the nightstand, not in her purse, not charging. She took it with her. Of course she did. But her laptop, that stupid rose gold MacBook she uses to make vision boards and search for astrology memes, was still on the desk. I stood over it for maybe 3 minutes, just staring. It was asleep, lid closed, waiting. My hands were sweating. I knew it was wrong. I knew the second I opened it, things would shift in a way I couldn't take back. But I had to know. I needed proof. Not for a fight. I just needed to know I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't the one inventing shadows in a well-lit room. I opened the lid. The login screen came up. A password box. Of course. I typed in what I thought it was. Our anniversary date. No dice. Tried her dog's name from when she was a kid. Finley. Wrong again. Then I tried my name. Nothing. And then, for no reason I can logically explain, I typed in Beckett. The screen blinked once. Then opened. I swear I stopped breathing for a solid 10 seconds. My name had never been the password. Our anniversary had never mattered enough. But his name? It opened the door like it lived there. I didn't even know where to look. Her desktop was cluttered with folders named things like Manifest, 2025 Intentions, and Projects. I clicked on her Messages app. At first, nothing looked strange. Conversations with her mom, with Taryn, with some art clients. Then I saw one thread with no contact photo, just the letter B. I clicked it, and there it was. A digital graveyard of secrets. Lines like, "Can't stop thinking about Tuesday. He doesn't suspect a thing. You were right. He never pays attention. Next time, you're staying the night. I don't care what he thinks." But the one that broke me was from 2 weeks ago. "Your ring was on the dresser again. Are you ever going to take it off for real?" I slammed the laptop shut. I wasn't ready to read anymore. My throat felt tight, my stomach knotted. I wanted to scream, to punch a wall, to do something. But all I could do was sit on the edge of the bed and stare at nothing. She'd been lying to my face for God knows how long. She was playing house with me while planning a whole different life behind my back. And the worst part? She was right. I never did suspect a thing. She came home an hour later with exactly one grocery bag, a bundle of bananas, oat milk, and toothpaste. I sat in the living room pretending to read a review article, but my eyes were locked on the lines of code on the screen like they could tell her what I knew. She kissed me on the cheek. I didn't kiss her back. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and pretended not to, which honestly is even worse. I didn't mention the laptop. I didn't mention the texts. I didn't mention that I knew Beckett was more than just some guy from her poetry group. I told myself I needed time, space, a plan. But really, I just didn't want to hear her lie to me again. Not with that innocent tone, not with that soft look in her eyes that made me doubt what I already knew was true. That night, after she fell asleep, her back turned toward me, always away, like she couldn't stand to face me anymore. I grabbed my own laptop and started digging. I Googled the name Beckett. Nothing useful. A novelist. A few old actors. Random LinkedIn profiles. No one that matched what I was looking for. Then I remembered something from one of the messages. Your ring was on the dresser again. That meant he'd been in our house. My house. Which meant she didn't just sneak around behind my back. She brought him into our bed, into our space, into the quiet corners of our life that I thought were ours alone. I searched deeper. Not just Beckett, but every variation I could think of. I combed through her Instagram followers, her Facebook friends, even the old Tumblr account she hadn't updated in years. There were poets, artists, musicians, people with names like Luna Hollow and Star Eater 17, but no Beckett. He didn't exist in her online world. No tags, no comments, no likes, no mentions. That's when it hit me. Maybe Beckett wasn't his real name. The only clue I had was a blurry photo from her iCloud backup folder, one she probably thought I'd never look through. It was hidden under a folder titled Work Inspo. I opened it expecting to see Pinterest screenshots or color palettes. Instead, I found a photo taken at night in a hotel room. A man sitting on the edge of a bed with his face turned away, shirtless, thin line on his shoulder, a tattoo of a raven's wing across his spine. I stared at that tattoo for a long time. Something about it felt familiar, like I'd seen it before, but couldn't place where. I tried reverse image searching it. Nothing. I zoomed in, checked the background. The bedspread had a logo embroidered into the corner. Rose Bay Suites. I looked it up. There were 5 Rose Bay hotels in the state. One of them was only 40 minutes from our house. And guess what? Callie had been away on a solo artist retreat in that same area about a month ago. She even brought me back a lavender soap bar from the local boutique. I remember thinking how thoughtful it was at the time. Now I wondered if she picked it up while he was in the shower. I kept going. I searched for Rose Bay Suites reviews, hoping to find a tagged photo. I clicked through Yelp, TripAdvisor, local hashtags. And there, buried in a comment thread on a Reddit travel post, was a user with a profile pic that nearly made me drop my laptop. It was him. Same back. Same tattoo. Same lean build. Username, B_wing84. I clicked the profile. Private. Of course. But one post stood out. A comment from 3 months ago, under a thread titled, Falling for a Married Woman. You can't make someone leave unless they want to. But I think she's close. He's just a placeholder at this point. She said he doesn't even look her in the eye anymore. That was me. He was talking about me. The man with no last name was already writing my eulogy, the slow death of a marriage he was proud to be helping murder. And the worst part? He wasn't wrong. I had stopped looking her in the eye. Maybe because deep down I knew. I just didn't want to admit what I was seeing. But now I had names. I had photos. I had timelines. What I didn't have yet was the truth straight from her mouth. But I was going to get it, even if it burned everything down. It was raining again the next night. Not a hard, cinematic rain, just that slow, steady kind that taps against the window like it knows a secret you don't. Callie was in the bedroom, half watching a documentary about mushrooms on Netflix, wrapped in the blanket my mother knitted for our wedding. The irony wasn't lost on me. I sat in the kitchen with a mug of tea I didn't want and my laptop open to an empty screen. I wasn't writing. I was waiting, thinking, listening. She had no idea I'd found the picture. No idea I knew which hotel. No idea I'd seen Beckett's Reddit post. But she would soon. I'd decided something the night before, while lying awake next to the ghost of the woman I married. I needed to see it with my own eyes. Not just messages. Not just photos. Not even a confession. I needed to see her with him. Hear her say his name. I needed that last nail in the coffin so I'd stop clinging to the idea that maybe I misunderstood something. That maybe the truth could still be smaller than the horror I was imagining. So I made a plan. It was stupid. It was emotional. But it was mine. Earlier that afternoon, I told her I was going to meet up with Max, my old college roommate, for drinks downtown. She barely looked up from her phone. That's nice, she said, in that airy, distracted tone she'd perfected lately. I left at 6:40. Took my car, circled the block, then parked 2 streets over. I walked back through the alley, around the side of our building, and slipped quietly into the backyard. And then, I left the back door unlocked on purpose. It was subtle, not wide open, just unlatched. Enough to let someone in if they knew where to go, if they'd been there before. Then I waited. I stayed in the shadows, in the narrow space between our fence and the neighbor's garage, soaking wet and shivering like a criminal, or a coward, maybe both. My phone was on silent. My heart wasn't. An hour passed, then another. I almost gave up. But at 8:52 p.m. I saw him. He didn't knock, didn't call. He just walked up from the side street, hoodie up, black jeans, and the swagger of someone who had done this exact thing before. He moved like he belonged there. No hesitation. Just one quick glance around the yard, then straight to the back door. It opened. He went inside. I didn't breathe for at least 30 seconds. My hands were numb from the cold, but I couldn't move. Part of me thought, go in there. End it. Make her explain herself with his shirt still in her hand. But another part of me, the part that still remembered her laugh, her sleepy eyes in the morning, her stories about being scared of thunderstorms, didn't want to see it. I didn't want that image burned into my skull. I didn't want to watch her choose someone else. So I stayed outside. And I listened. At first, just quiet movement. The low murmur of voices. Then a laugh. Her laugh. The one I hadn't heard in weeks. Real, unfiltered, the kind she used to make only with me. Then footsteps. Then silence. And then sounds I'll never be able to erase, no matter how much I try. I don't remember walking away. I don't remember how I got back to my car. But I do remember sitting behind the wheel, hands trembling, and realizing something far worse than the cheating. She wasn't just escaping with him. She was herself with him. With me, lately, she'd been a shadow, a routine, a checklist. But with him, she was laughing, alive, unburdened. And that broke something I didn't even know was still whole. I drove until the gas light came on. I didn't answer her texts when she finally messaged me at 11:17 asking, "You still out?" I didn't come home until after 1 a.m., when I knew he'd be gone, the sheets remade, the wine glass washed and hidden, her makeup wiped off like none of it ever happened. She was asleep when I walked in, or pretending to be. I stood there, in the doorway, staring at her for a long time. Long enough for the guilt to wake her if it was real. It didn't. The next morning, she made pancakes. She never makes pancakes. She's more of a smoothie and mood board kind of person, so when I walked into the kitchen and smelled butter and cinnamon, something felt immediately off. She was in one of my old t-shirts, the faded one with the little hole under the collar, and humming to herself like we were back in year 1 of our marriage, before everything started to rot underneath the surface. "Sleep okay?" she asked without turning around. I lied. "Yeah." She nodded like she believed me, but something in her eyes darted a little too fast when she finally faced me with that plate in her hands. She was watching me too closely, like she was waiting to see if I'd mention anything. Like she thought maybe I'd heard something. Maybe I had. Maybe I hadn't. She didn't know. And that uncertainty was a crack in her armor. I ate half the pancakes and flushed the rest when she wasn't looking. I couldn't keep food down anyway. Not with the memory of his shadow still burned into my peripheral vision from the night before. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Because something had shifted in me. I wasn't just broken anymore. I was studying her. Watching her body language. Listening to every syllable. Mapping her tells like a poker player with nothing left to lose. If I was going to end this, I wanted to end it on my terms, with everything exposed and no room for her to crawl out of it. And that's when fate, or maybe just carelessness, handed me a weapon. That afternoon, while she was in the shower, I grabbed her phone again. I didn't have much time, maybe 5 minutes max. I wasn't looking for texts anymore. Those could be deleted. I wanted something she forgot to cover. Something messy. Something human. What I found was a voice memo. Not in her messages. In the actual voice memos app. The one no one ever checks unless they're a musician or journaling their therapy sessions. It was labeled only with a date, July 12th, 2 months ago. I tapped play and shoved my headphones in just as the water in the bathroom kicked up louder. What I heard wasn't moaning. Wasn't a confession. It was worse. It was her voice, raw and unfiltered, laughing softly. "He cried again last night. Told me he feels like I'm slipping away. He doesn't even know I'm already gone. I hate how guilty I feel, but also, not really. Beck, you were right. I don't want to be saved anymore." Then another voice, deeper, raspy, smug. "Told you. Men like him are designed to be replaced." Then static. Then nothing. I sat frozen in place. Every breath caught somewhere between nausea and rage. She had recorded herself talking about me like I was a ghost. Not even worth resenting. Just something to step over on her way to something more exciting. I didn't even get anger in that recording. I got pity. But what haunted me more was that name again. Beck. Not Beckett. Beck. It sounded too casual. Too close. Like someone who wasn't just a fling. Someone who had been around longer than I thought. I dropped the phone just in time before the bathroom door opened. She walked out in a towel, wet hair, no suspicion on her face. I told her I was going out for a walk, cleared my throat, and left before I could say something stupid. But I didn't go for a walk. I drove straight to my friend Josh's house. Josh is one of the only people I trust. He's not the emotional type, but he's observant, quiet, and loyal to a fault. We hadn't talked much lately, but I told him I needed help. Told him it was serious. He let me in without questions. I played the recording for him. He didn't say anything for nearly a full minute. Just sat there, blinking. Then he said, "You want me to find out who this guy is?" I nodded. And that was the moment everything stopped being passive. No more waiting for her to tell me the truth. No more hoping it would end quietly. If she was already gone, fine. I was going to meet the man who stole her, and I wasn't walking into it blind. Josh called me the next morning. He didn't bother with small talk. "You're not gonna like this," he said. I hadn't slept at all. I'd spent the night staring at the ceiling, trying to decide whether I still loved her or if the person I loved had died quietly in our bed months ago. I kept hearing her voice from that recording. The way she said, "I don't want to be saved anymore," like it was some romantic rebellion, as if I'd been the villain all along, simply for loving her too much, too softly, too predictably. But Josh's voice cut through that fog like a knife. He told me he'd found something. A partial reverse image search from the blurred hotel photo had led to an old photography blog. A local wedding shooter who posted behind-the-scenes shots from a reception 2 towns over. And in the background of one of those photos, barely visible, was the same man. Same tattoo. Same build. But this time, he had a name tag on his shirt. The name wasn't Beckett. It wasn't even Beck. It was Shane Walters. I didn't recognize the name, not at first. But Josh did. His voice got tight when he said, "Dude, Shane Walters used to work for that boutique ad agency downtown. The one your wife did branding work with last spring." Suddenly it clicked. Callie had picked up a few freelance gigs through a local agency. A short campaign for a startup tequila brand, I think. She said she hated everyone in the office. Said they were pretentious, cold, not her people. But apparently, one of them was her person enough. Josh dug deeper, and that's when things got worse. Shane didn't just leave the agency. He was fired. Quietly. No drama. No public blow-up. But if you scroll far enough on Glassdoor reviews, and Josh did, you'd find a few anonymous comments warning women to stay away from the guy with the raven tattoo. Suddenly the weirdness made sense. No social media footprint, no last name, no trace in her circle of friends. She wasn't just hiding an affair. She was hiding him. And if she was protecting his identity, there was only one reason. She knew he was dangerous. Josh offered to come with me to confront him. I told him no. I didn't want backup. I didn't want it to turn into a fight. I just wanted clarity. Closure. Something real to look in the eye. So I found him myself. I drove to the coffee shop across from that old agency, parked across the street, and waited. I had no idea if he still came around, but something told me he would. Men like that, they linger near their messes. They feed off them. And sure enough, at 3:17 p.m., I saw him walk out of a nearby office building. He looked exactly like I remembered. Hoodie, broad shoulders, raven wing curling out from under his collar. He was holding a paper cup of coffee, smirking at something on his phone. I got out of the car and crossed the street without thinking. "Shane," I said, loudly enough for him to hear. He paused mid-step, turned, and saw me. He smiled like we were old friends. "You must be Eli," he said. No hesitation. No apology. I stood there stunned. "She told you my name?" "She talks about you all the time," he said, sipping his coffee. "Mostly sad stuff." I felt my fists clench without meaning to, but I didn't move. I wasn't here to hit him. I was here to understand. "What do you want from her?" I asked. "You trying to ruin her life? Or are you just bored?" He looked me dead in the eyes and said something I'll never forget. "I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm just giving her something you can't." I asked what that meant. I was expecting some cliché. Passion, freedom, adventure. But he shrugged and said, "Chaos." Some people aren't meant for safe love. They want to feel like they're breaking something every time they kiss. Then he walked past me. No drama. No fight. No yelling. Just that one word hanging in the air like smoke. Chaos. I didn't follow him. I couldn't. My legs felt like stone. My mind was unraveling. Because deep down, I knew he was right. That's what this had been the whole time. Not just a betrayal, but a demolition. Callie didn't want to be rescued. She wanted to light the house on fire and stand in the ashes barefoot, smiling. And I'd spent months trying to hand her buckets of water, not realizing she was the one holding the match. When I got home that night, I didn't go in right away. I sat in my car for over an hour, staring at the windows of our apartment, watching for signs of movement. A shadow passing behind the blinds, the flicker of the TV, anything. I imagined her inside, folding laundry or sipping tea, maybe scrolling through Instagram like the world hadn't just shifted on its axis. I wondered if she'd showered yet, if she'd washed off him. But the truth was, I didn't care anymore. Not like before. The ache was still there, yes, but it wasn't the kind that begged for answers. It was quieter now, like something dying out after burning too long. Eventually, I walked in. She was on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, headphones in, typing something on her laptop. She looked up and gave me a neutral smile, the kind you give a neighbor, not a husband. Hey, you were out late. I didn't answer. I set my keys down, walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled out the small duffel bag I hadn't touched since we went camping 2 summers ago, back when we still touched each other without flinching. I packed slowly, methodically, one drawer at a time. No dramatics, no slamming. She walked in eventually, arms crossed. What are you doing? I looked at her for a long time before answering. Not her face, her eyes. And for the first time, I saw her clearly. Not the woman I fell in love with. Not the version I held on to like a relic. I saw the real her. The one who laughed behind my back. Who whispered about me into microphones and made love with someone else under the roof I'd built around her. I'm done, I said. She didn't speak. She just stood there, blinking, like she couldn't compute what was happening. I think part of her always thought she could lie her way through anything. That I'd always bend, always break, always come back. But not this time. I zipped the bag and walked past her. No shouting, no begging, no sobbing confessions. Just the sound of my footsteps across the hardwood floor and the quiet click of the front door opening. Eli, she said behind me, voice barely above a whisper. I turned, just once. You're not worth the pain you've caused me, I said. But I'm worth the peace that comes after. And then I left. Not just the apartment. Not just the marriage. I left the version of me who stayed silent. Who made excuses. Who loved her harder than he loved himself. It's been 3 months. I'm living in a smaller place now. No shared toothbrushes. No phantom perfume in the sheets. Just silence. And for once, it doesn't feel lonely. It feels honest. I go on walks again. I started writing about music instead of cameras. I even joined a group for people going through divorce. And somehow, that helps more than I expected. Not because of what they say, but because they listen. Callie sent me one text 2 weeks after I left. Just one line. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I didn't reply. Because finally, I don't have anything left to prove.